Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back for some more EVE Online. Today's video is going to be a discussion video because I want to talk a little bit about the September release and basically also cover some other updates for the game in September because it's actually pretty big. There's a lot to cover, so if you want to read along you can always go to eveonline.com where, to my surprise, the link to the community website is gone. I'm not sure what this is about, but I know I have to do like a Google search to go to the forum, so please CCP bring the link back for the community website. Unless you guys have like a plan or something like that, definitely let us know because well, I'm kind of missing that link. I used to always just go to eveonline.com, press on the community site and then go through the forums that way. But for this video we want to take a look at all the articles that are out, so you can always click on articles here and then for instance we find some more stuff about GM week, but what I'm interested in is here the September release deployment information, which will then lead to some dev blogs about the September update. So let's go over here, let's get started with that. September release deployment information. The next release will be on September 10th during a slightly extended daily downtime. They're expecting it to last apparently for half an hour. It brings changes to the sinusoidal field generators, which is pretty damn big, of course, making it a lot more costly, I would say, because you need a very specific chip for the combat variant, I would say, of the sinusoidal field. And then they've chosen to create a new type of sino specifically for the industrial ships, which I think nobody actually thought that would be the solution that they would go for, but yeah, that's what it's going to be. This actually links to a dev blog and the full patch notes, so let's take a look here. First of all, the dev blog that I find very interesting, the September release wormholes and stars get an update. So we have another graphical update. All of this is thanks to CCP moving to the next DirectX client, and it allows them to just do more stuff. I love that. I love the fact that CCP is constantly updating the game graphically, and it basically still keeps up with modern games. I think that basically the architecture of just the 1 second ticks for action does allow the CCP to do some crazy stuff on the graphical front, and yeah, that department generally really blows it out of the park. So here we've got some ideas as to the new graphics for the wormholes. Here are the stars. There's definitely also focus on high shader quality and a low shader quality. So before the update you just had a massive just ball of a single color apparently for the low shader quality. I don't play with that, but that is going to change to at least something that slightly resembles a big star, and then a lot more detail here in the high shader quality as well. I think that they also added more motion to the star surface there, so definitely something we'll have to take a look at in game. And here are the differences for the wormholes, a lot more of these and a lot more detailed effects around the wormhole itself, and then definitely a pretty big upgrade here, I think, from low shader quality here. So we get a specs update. What I wanted to take a look at here, for instance, love how they put these animated GIFs. Solar surface animation speeds increase to give stars a more dynamic appearance, and hopefully one day if you fly into the star you lose your ship, but that's not for this update. And here on the wormhole side of things, so let's see, this is like the new visual, pretty rough one, but it gives you a bit of an idea. So all of these individual like founts of I don't know, energy, they do move in like many more variable directions. It looks pretty cool, although it starts to look pretty busy to me. I actually really liked like the good old wormholes that were very muted and where you basically only had the effects here in the middle. I thought that was actually pretty damn cool. Another change is when someone enters the wormhole. Now here, for instance, you can imagine that's about a dozen or maybe even 20 or 30 ships that enter, go through the wormhole, so you'll have that effect that will no longer be limited to one. A very nice little addition, giving you that visual feedback on what's happening when it comes to a wormhole. And same thing with the velocity of all, and the intenseness of all of the effects around the wormhole. So if you see that it's pretty slow moving and there's a lot, then that means that you've got more than 24 hours left. Then there's a state for between 4 and 24 hours, and finally less than 4 hours also has its effect. Very nice to just give that visual representation of the state of the wormhole. I think it will help players. I know that when I used to be more active in wormhole space, I would instinctively look at the wormhole and pretty much know what was happening, and so they really are still making it so that that is possible. Even on the low shaders, I mean, it's pretty big and noticeable a difference, of course, when you've got less than 4 hours to go. It looks like a beating heart that's set to give up at any moment. And then this one, I really liked it, that you now get this, I'm not sure if it was there before, but I never really noticed it, but now you get a very clear color representation as well, depending on the size of ships that can go through the wormhole. So you've got here in the golden lines, this allows all ships except Titans and super carriers. The gray lines, oops, did I accidentally click on that? Yes, I did. The gray lines allow for battleships and smaller to pass through. Then we've got the teal fields. So this is this one, battle cruisers and smaller. And then finally, the blue fields are for destroyers. And god damn it, and I keep clicking when I don't have to. Or in the wrong place. So the blue ones on the right is for the sea ones, basically, which is what I personally do like to take some small day trips in, and perhaps I'll go back to someday as well. On the low shader quality, it's definitely a lot less noticeable, so you have to be a little bit more careful here to notice the color. The red of the wormhole itself is far more dominant there, and here on high shader quality, I think it's going to show up very, very nicely. So great to see these visual updates, and I think that yeah, just go through the motions, find a couple of wormholes, take a look at it, and try to recognize exactly what's happening. More than 24 hours, pretty calm. Less than 4 hours, pretty wobbly looking. And then of course the color pattern itself: golden, silver, teal, and blue. That's the pattern for large to smaller ships that are able to pass through. Pretty cool. I like it, and we'll definitely take a look at it once we get in game. Next up, let's quickly take a look at the patch notes for the September release as well. That I'm not gonna cover all of that. Definitely read up on it yourself if you want all of the details, but perhaps some of the things that are noticeable here, I went through it just before the recording to at least get a bit of a sense of what's happening, and it's actually surprisingly varied, in my opinion. It's not necessarily like a massive patch or a massive update or anything like that, but they're tweaking stuff all around the game client. I think I like that. The audio, for instance, 2 new pieces of semi-procedurally generated music for wormholes. These compositions are an indication of how music in wormhole space will sound in the very near future. So they're updating the background noise of wormhole space. Very cool. Also, of course, new sound effects coming with the improved visuals for wormholes. Then you've got the sino changes, then the fitting warnings for the newer players. So there will be different types of warnings if you make mistakes, or if what is considered to be a mistake in your fitting. So crucial red, the CPU is overloaded, of course, power grid cargo, and the strategic cruiser is missing a subsystem. It's basically the same as you're not able to undock, if I'm not mistaken. Then you get yellow warnings, which ship has invalid modules fitted. For instance, after a ship has been rebalanced. Oh, of course, that should really allow you to not undock either, so that might actually be red here. Are not providing bonuses. That could be interesting. Then I think that for very new players, this could be very helpful. Mixing turret groups, mixing turret sizes, launcher groups, having both armor types on it is going to give you a yellow warning that indicates, hey, that's probably not a good idea. And then there's even a white warning if an armor tank is put on what is considered an armor ship. Same with the shield tank, and then polarized weapons fitted will also give you an info. So very interesting little change here. Not that it's needed for the more veteran players, but I guess that they have the statistics for it, and I guess that many new players might make those mistakes of mixing turret groups or mixing the tanks, thinking, well, if I fit both shield and armor tank, I'm completely a brick that's never gonna fall, and it just doesn't work that way, of course. After that, we've got the new, let's see, pre-warp state, where you are calculating, I think it is, your establishing your warp vector. And yeah, that's basically what we saw during the mass test. So something that is going to limit how long you can bump a ship or a freighter, for instance, in order to prepare your suicide gang. But it also helps a lot with ships that are stuck in structures, in stations, in other things, where if they find them after 3 minutes, you automatically enter warp, as the warp vector will be established regardless of your alignment or your speed. So this should also help people that end up stuck somehow in trying to get to warp. Then some graphical updates, new set of implants, the Mimesis set, which is specific for the weapons of the Triglavians. So they're working on that as well. Then, all right, coming out of the blue, look at that for the market. The percentage price change listed in the market ticker will now display price changes over 7 days rather than 1 day. Should show a little bit more volatility, should also give you like a quick visual idea of whether or not the price is going up or going down. Should definitely be a little bit more versatile than just a 1 day update that it has now. And where does this come from? No idea, but it's very, very welcome. So we've got audio, we've got the rebalance, the big things of this patch, but then you also have these tiny little things like a small change, a small improvement to the market ticker, actually. Great. Then of course we've got the modules with the industrial sinusoidal field generator. So all of that is of course for the sino changes. Mission and NPCs, all right, another one. This was actually announced, but ventures are no longer able to capture faction warfare complexes. This was often used by bots as well, because you could just warp out even on a single point. They have that innate bonus to being able to warp out, and so that's why they are gone. And then the Triglavian Collective are proceeding to exert their influence in new areas of New Eden. Systems located in low security regions have reported the presence of invading Triglavian forces. So there is another escalation of the Triglavian invasion, and I think that CCP does have a plan here for what they want to do with the Triglavians. Hopefully it's like towards a winter expansion or something like that. Then again, blueprints for the new Sino, and the ship changes as well. Then most of these, I don't think there's some fixes in here as well. Update to the UI for the tutorial page. Quite a few removed an instruction during the tour to stop the player ship. So lots of these down here I think are a little bit smaller in size, but just look at the size of these patch notes, and especially the variety in all of the different things that are getting patched up here. I like it. Definitely shows that CCP is working hard on improving EVE Online. Next up, another article that I spotted is of course the monthly economic report for August. I haven't covered the one from July. I think that if you read the subreddit or if you take a look at the forums, you will have seen of course that there is a pretty big impact when it comes to the blackout and the economic numbers for the game. I think what was a little bit surprising is that, well, while ratting income faucet from ratting went down, they pretty much supplanted that with more mining. So I do want to take a quick look at it. Let's see, monthly. Oh, that's actually the monthly security report first. All right. Did I click on that one as well? Why the hell not? So CCP is now also giving us updates on the security reports. Let's maybe quickly start with that one, because in the month of August, so that is just from the 1st of August to the 1st of September, they have banned 994 accounts for hacking, 4,369 accounts for botting related activities, and 2,454 accounts for RMT related activities. That is a lot. I think that this is a really big peak all of a sudden in how many accounts that they have banned, and it does look like it has an impact on the ISK that they're expecting. I don't think that this is like a hard as rock metric, but they're expecting a lot less ISK to be generated at this point by the bots, and it makes a lot of sense. Nosec has become very risky for them, and most reports indicate that they've actually moved to HiSec, that they even go so far as to mine in ventures, for instance, which is really terrible income compared to what they could manage, for instance, in a super capital ratting in 0-0. But yeah, I think a post that I saw about botting, I think hit it right on the money. It says that we're never completely going to get rid of botting, that's just impossible, but I think when it comes to the potential impact that they have on the game with the nullsec blackout right now, it does look like their potential has been cut down substantially. If they're forced back to high sec to try and bot high sec activities, that is going to be a lot less efficient than Rorcal mining or ratting in a super carrier and things like that. So overall, personally, I think that it will have had and is still having a major impact on botting. CCPs are also apparently working hard on well, dismantling all of those networks and banning a lot of players, a lot of accounts, I should say, not players, but a lot of accounts for these types of activities. And for the long-term health of the game, I think it is very, very important that this is kept up, of course. But I think definitely a positive aspect of the blackout, in my personal opinion. And then let's move on to that monthly economic report for August. It is pretty interesting, although I'm again not gonna dive into all of the details. We've already been going for 16 minutes. We're gonna try and look at some of the more interesting charts, in my opinion. And here, for instance, production and destruction. This could have people worried. This is production, for instance, here in the red, and that is definitely a low point. This is actually, let's see here, so this is September, and we're seeing that here again 1, 2, 3 years back. This is the lowest point pretty much in 3 years for production in the game. That's pretty low. Same thing with mining, if I'm not mistaken. I'll quickly, can I zoom in on it? Not really, but if I'm not mistaken, it's not very easy to read, but this should be the mined amount. You can clearly see that we took a dive here as well after July, August here. Pretty massive dive. So while in July mining still went up, the counter move has happened, and I think that overall now in August we can clearly see that in nullsec both ratting income and mining income, or mining volumes, will have gone down, I think, across the board. Another thing that I do want to point out is that August, July, August, September, these are the summer months. You get this decline. Let's go look for August, September here again. Last year, you can clearly see that we do have that summer decline and then that dip here in mining as well. And then the year before that, let's go July, August, September. Here again, look at that decrease with a bottom in September, and then here again, clearly a really big drop in mining amounts as well in August 2 years ago. And then here about 3 years ago, this is actually October, but you can clearly tell that we again start at quite low points, and that you have here, for instance, a February spike, a March spike, and then here again with, well, this is actually November, December spike. So while this is undoubtedly is a pretty low point, and the nullsec blackout and the chaos era will have its impact on production and mining in the game, we must not forget that I think the seasonal aspect is definitely playing a role here as well. And if CCP can provide us with some exciting news for the future development of the game, perhaps a winter expansion, then I do think that we will see potentially a pretty massive comeback, and of course potentially as well a much healthier game with all the changes, at least economically speaking. It all depends on your own viewpoint, of course. This is pretty much the same thing, so we're not gonna cover that, but I did want to take a look at the ISK faucets, sinks and velocity. I think there was a chart for that. So top 8 sinks and faucets over time. If I'm not mistaken, this is gonna be ratting income. That dropped off so massively to well, a low point in well, more than 3 years for sure here in July. This has to be the blackout, of course, so a lot less ratting happening. And if I'm not mistaken, Delve still by far the biggest, let's see, that's market value, production value. So the Forge still producing more, but Delve still doing really well. And then NPC bounties per region. This is Delve. Look at that, head and shoulders above everyone else. Well, if you're huge and organized, even the blackout is not going to deter you from ratting. You're able to create like a safe haven, or at least somewhat safe haven for people to do those activities. But it will come at a lot more energy, a lot more expense, of course, in probably time, manpower, just being ready to drop at a moment's notice on any enemy fleets there, major intel networks, all of that stuff. So if you're the biggest and the most organized, it is normal that you do end up in the most efficient region, of course. But this one, let's take a look at that. Money supply, that's a pretty clear trend break. It has been going pretty much straight up for 3 years outside of some small events. And then here, all of a sudden, we do see a pretty clear trend break in the amounts that are available. This should increase the value of ISK across the board, potentially dropping the price of Plex as well. And then here, the velocity of ISK, I mean, this is also definitely a low point, and so if I'm not mistaken, that is how often one gets exchanges hands on the market on average. That has gone down, so trade does seem to have taken a bit of a hit as well. Economic dishes, I'm not sure if there's anything that I'm gonna notice out of that, because I don't fully understand what's behind them exactly. What we can notice is that this one is pretty high. Consumer price index is actually up quite a lot. I think that should be an indication that ISK is more valuable in the game. Took a nice little jump here, but I'm not exactly sure. Overall though, again, this is super detailed. If you like this kind of stuff, I personally like it, but I'm not like a complete buff or anything like that. I do EVE talk and I'm very happy to keep an eye on the market that way. But the monthly economic report is available for you as well, and the impact of the nullsec blackout and the chaos era is definitely reflected there. My personal opinion, as I've said it, combine this monthly economic report with the monthly security report, and I think that overall for the long-term health of the game, this is all very positive. But I must also be honest and still put that caveat in as well. The root cause of a lot of these problems, I still think, are the skill injectors. This is going to be a very difficult battle for CCP to wage, because, well, no matter what they do, the player base can just switch very quickly to the most efficient way of doing things. And we'll have to still wait and see on the long term, of course, how the game holds up, despite the fact that these skill injectors exist in the game. If I'm not mistaken, CCP has already said that those aren't going out because they do represent a lot of revenue, and I personally can understand that absolutely. But yeah, this is, I think, in my head, in my theory, this is actually like longer term revenue that they've squashed into shorter term revenue, and it is almost inevitable, and it's going to be very difficult to keep that from continuing to be a problem over and over again in the game. So we will see. Overall though, I am really impressed with CCP daring to take all of these steps, and I think that we should see this as a real attempt from CCP to give the game a longer term healthy outlook on the economic front, because it revalues ISK making, it revalues mining. All of the AFK activities and botting activities have been made harder, more risky, and so the efforts that you put in the game actually do end up being far more rewarded than, let's say, 6 months ago. At least that's how it feels to me personally. Anyways, that's it, guys. September update, lots of stuff to look over, and yeah, we'll definitely try to find our way in the game and take a look at all of this as soon as we can. For now, that's gonna be it for this video. Good luck out there, and I'll see you all next time.